On February 4th, 2023, a plane from Southwest came within 100 feet of a FedEx plane in Austin.
Southwest aboard.
Y'all see that shit?
FedEx is on the go.
You see that?
Just over a week after that, a plane from Spirit Airline came within 200 feet of a cargo plane in Miami. The New York Times released an investigation that showed that these almost collisions, known as near misses, were happening multiple times a week, more than 500 in the previous year. Each one of those could have resulted in hundreds of deaths. Each one of these was because of a minor but potentially catastrophic error made by an air traffic controller. Being an air traffic controller is one of the most high stakes and stressful jobs you can have. We talk to workers who are watching out for millions of us every day.
Can you imagine working a high stress job with outdated equipment? Working a high stress job, loads of anxiety on outdated equipment. Like, who does that? Let's continue.
Find out who's watching out for them. First, let's talk about what air traffic controllers actually do. You've maybe flown dozens of times in your life and never thought about the people in the control tower.
We have the largest and most complex aviation network in the world. There's no other country in the world that can come close to the number of airports, the number of flights, the amount of traffic.
That's Bill McGee. He's worked in aviation for decades.
It's no secret that this is one of the most stressful professions you could possibly imagine. It is literally life and death. Whether it's Chicago O'Hare or New York LaGuardia or Los Angeles LAX, you're going to be encountering dozens and dozens and dozens of flights on that shift. It's always been this way, but it's gotten much worse in recent years.
To find out why that is, we wanted to talk to air traffic controllers, some who are retired and some who are currently on the job. But that would prove to be extremely difficult. Last summer, yes, 6 months ago, we got an email from a burner account. It was an air traffic controller in the Northeast. We'll call her Megan. This was just a few days after the New York Times investigation was released. I called the ATC. She didn't want to go on the record. It was Labor Day weekend, in a year of historic strikes and union actions that More Perfect Union had been covering. But here I was talking to a person who didn't feel like she could speak up about her job. So we started looking for someone else who would talk. First, I tried reaching out to air traffic controllers on Reddit, where ATCs talk about their work, joke, complain, ask for advice, and found out that they were not happy about the coverage. The New York Times had exposed a few ATCs by name from classified FAA documents.
Doxing controllers now? What the fuck, Emily?
Inley Steele is one of the Times investigative reporters who's been covering the FAA.
And this is why, when a reporter asks you for anything, you
shut
the
up.
fuck up and refer them to your manager or your union.
Yep.
Wow, good luck getting any controller to ever talk to you again.
Okay, fair enough. For every close call, there is an incident report. These reports are littered with clues as to what's happening in control towers.
I was too busy to keep watching it. Another example of why short staffing is a safety issue.
Our mental health is suffering with the extra stress and close calls like this.
This could have easily been an aircraft accident report.
We're having our evening rush on crack.
We are currently in a staffing hole.
And y'all want to sit here and try to convince me flying is safer than driving. The people that are tasked with making sure your planes don't collide with each other are underpaid, overworked, under high amounts of stress and anxiety, and working with outdated equipment. I'm good. I'll take my chances on a vehicle that I can control, right? I don't have to rely on anybody else. I do my own anticipation. I'll do my own defensive driving. Y'all bugging. You'll never convince me flying is safer than driving, only because there's only 5,400 aircraft in the sky at one point at any given time. But let's continue.
Which is why I'm filling out this report.
It's not that we don't have skilled and qualified people. We have skilled and qualified people that don't want to do these jobs. We have lost a lot of experienced air traffic controllers, and the ones that are still on the job are under tremendous stress.
I finally did get a few people to talk to me anonymously, and they confirmed what Bill said.
Mostly controllers are just fatigued. With a lot of the mistakes happening, I think it's not a far leap to attribute those mistakes to the decade-plus run of facilities using overtime as a crutch for staffing. We are currently in a staffing hole, and they aren't even hiring enough controllers to keep up with attrition.
Wow.
ATCs report working 10-hour shifts, 6 days a week, year-round, and sometimes overtime on top of that. It makes it impossible to have a regular sleep schedule, or frankly, a life outside of work. Multiple ATCs reported that the schedule was creating stress and anxiety, as well as depression.
ATCs are known for being functional alcoholics.
Wow.
I would have 5 to 6 drinks per night. When I got home from a shift, I would grab a glass of vodka before my bag even hit the floor.
Wow.
So at what point is it just alcoholics running the FAA?
So you got a bunch of people engaging in vices to cope with their jobs. They take that at home, the job and the vices home. And if their marriages are suffering, the relationships are suffering, or they're not having anybody to decompress with, and they got to come back to work. Y'all will never, please don't ever try to convince me flying is safer than I shout out to Captain Steve. But Captain Steve ain't gonna tell y'all the stressors that the ATCs are under. Captain Steve has to deal with these people every day for every flight he takes. How come Captain Steve ain't talking about these people that are under these types of stress in his profession? I fucks with Captain Steve, but come on, Cap, give it to me straight.
Do we want that?
Ultimately, ATCs across the country are worried that one of these near misses won't be a miss.
I guarantee there will be a collision in the next 3 years.
So why are controllers having to work hours like this?
Wow.
Well, understaffing is a problem that goes back years.
How prophetic is
or
this?
Specifically to 1 year. Dominic was an air traffic controller in the 1980s and a member of PATCO, the union for ATCs. The union had been begging President Carter for improvements to the FAA.
Reagan, when he was running for president, caught on to that. He said that, exactly what I said. Too few controllers working too many hours with, antiquated equipment have placed our flying public in jeopardy.
PATCO made the unusual choice to back Ronald Reagan, a Republican, after he sent a letter to the union.
He said that if elected, he would do everything within his power to rectify all his bad problems.
Many PATCO members knew Reagan as the president of the Screen Actors Guild. He was a union man, but he didn't fool Dominic.
He was a showman, that was it.
I take it that you are a performer?
All hat and no cattle, as they say.
A year after Reagan was elected, none of the changes had been made at the FAA.
The minute that he got crowned, he disappeared. After about 8 months of just sitting there saying, we're still working 6-day weeks, we're working overtime, we're burning out, we never got a response after that from the White House.
That's when PATCO voted to strike.
There were 1,500 air traffic controllers there. We were up all night, and we said we're going on strike. You couldn't hear yourself think. It was like the roar of a 737 after about 2 hours. There wasn't an airplane in the sky except Air Force One.
Federal employees in the United States aren't allowed to go on strike. That's been true since the passage of Taft-Hartley in 1947.
You can't sit and negotiate with a union that's in violation of the law.
But no president had ever invoked that part of the act. It was, as one historian we spoke to put it, a gentleman's agreement. The Postal Service had staged a multi-day wildcat strike in 1970, and President Nixon had used firm words.
If the Postmaster General deems it necessary to act in other affected major cities, I will not hesitate to act.
But he didn't go as far as Reagan would.
They are in violation of the law, and if they do not report for work within 48 hours, they have forfeited their jobs and will be terminated.
Reagan laid off the striking air traffic controllers in 1 day, more than 11,000 of them. He also sent federal marshals to arrest 17 union leaders across the country.
What the hell? What? Isn't that fascism? Wait, isn't that fascism what he just did? That's crazy.
This guy's a legend, Steve Wallet. He was arrested by the federal marshals, brought out in chains, chained to controller.
This has caused cyclical shortages ever since.
Wow.
The real legacy of the strike, though, is the way Reagan successfully tamed the union. Air traffic controllers were essentially silenced into accepting long hours and impossible schedules.
You 20,000 applicants. My job's available. I've been fired. Give it a try. And I'd like to talk to you in about 5 years and see how you feel then.
I think it's impossible to underestimate how huge the PATCO strike was, not just in aviation circles, but in labor. The Reagan administration deliberately set out to break the labor movement in the United States.
There's something else we need to talk about that a ton of ATCs brought up in our conversation, and that's mental health. The scheduling of the overtime is creating a lot of fatigue and stress. But what about if you just need medication because of life?
We know that safety-sensitive personnel are required to meet certain medical standards to maintain an active operational status.
That's Liam Hoffman, who studies mental health among pilots and in aviation. Air traffic controllers, because of the nature of their work, are set to very high health standards, both physical and mental.
Right now, the aeromedical screening system in a lot of ways is dichotomous. The personnel is fit to perform their duties, or they're not fit to perform their duties. But mental health is more complicated because what we're looking for is more subtle incapacitation. They're not completely incapacitated, but they're maybe not 100% able to perform their duties.
If an ATC has experienced anxiety and depression and wants to go on medication, they temporarily lose their medical clearance and have to take off 6 months to a year to take something as simple as Prozac. This can lead to self-medication, or what Hoffman calls healthcare avoidance. Multiple ATCs I spoke with mentioned that they use alcohol as a form of medication.
Our study of over 5,000 pilots across North America showed that over 50% reported a history of healthcare avoidance due to fear for losing their certificate. Air traffic controllers find themselves in similar circumstances.
Okay, once again, I F's with Captain Steve, but Captain Steve, your industry there's problems there, man. Y'all still want to convince me flying is safer. You guys are being monitored on planes by a bunch of drunks that are barely functioning. They're either on Prozac or they're drunk. Man, please, y'all don't get the hell out of here with that bullshit. Never.
One of the ATCs I talked to, the one who was drinking every night, she eventually left the job for mental health reasons, and she said her drinking fell by 80%. It turns out I wasn't an alcoholic, she told me. I was just an air traffic controller.
Wow. In 2023, air traffic control suddenly became front page news in the United States. Suddenly, Congress and media and the public are all saying, we need answers. How did this happen? Well, it's not a mystery in many cases. The fact is, we have been understaffed and underfunded and under-resourced at the Federal Aviation Administration for more than 40 years. And quite frankly, in my view, it's shameful.
The FAA is proposing $117 million for training 1,800 additional air traffic controllers for 2024. The Senate recently passed a budget for 3,000 new controllers over the next 5 years, and it's on track for the House. Right now, training isn't keeping pace with retirement.
So they didn't fast track this? Holy cow! Y'all got me messed up. They couldn't even fast track this? Oh no.
So the FAA also needs to guarantee that the job itself is sustainable for the workers.
Oh, y'all got me messed up, man. No. How many planes in the air at one time? 5,400 planes. Okay, 5,400 aircraft in the air at any given time that the 540 airport traffic control towers active in the U.S. Okay, 5,400 is our number of aircraft. That's helicopters, airplanes, drones, whatever. Okay, 5,400. 5,400. Now let's ask a dumb question. Let's ask a dumb question. We're not talking worldwide. I'm talking strictly the U.S. How many cars on the roads? I'm talking only strictly U.S. Good God. Is that U.S.? Okay, let's do this. Oh my God, 250 million automobiles. Okay. There are currently 250 automobiles in the US currently. So you're comparing 250 million automobiles just in the US, and let's say 10% are on the roads. That's 2.5 million. I'm being generous. Let's just say there's 10% of 250 million. Okay, that's 2.5. That's 2.5 million versus 5,400 planes or aircraft in this. Please, this is a dumbass argument. Stop this dumb shit. Okay, this is a dumbass argument. Like, listen. I like Captain Steve, but stop. It's only safer because y'all have way less numbers. Way less numbers. Way less numbers. There are currently 276 million registered vehicles on the road in the U.S. That's registered, not operating at the same time. Okay? Let's just say it's 10% of that number. You're looking at least 2 million vehicles on the roads right now in the U.S. versus 5,400 plane or aircraft in the airs in America right now. Stop playing with me. Let's not do this. Okay? Let's not do this. So it's only safer because there's less numbers. I'm good. I'll take my chances on the road every time. Every time. You kidding me?